They say legends come from a sliver of truth, but what if that sliver came with scales, fins, and glowing eyes? For centuries, sailors swore they saw beautiful, half-human creatures slipping beneath the waves, singing songs, dragging men to their doom, or simply watching from the rocks. While most chalked it up to myth or madness, what if they actually saw something real? Today we're diving into real-life sea creatures that might just explain where those haunting mermaid stories began. Imagine you've been at sea for months. You're dehydrated, sunburned, and slowly losing your grip on reality. Then, suddenly, you spot a figure rising from the waves. Long arms, a rounded face, and what looks like a tail sliding beneath the surface. You've just seen a mermaid. Or so you think. In reality, you've met a manatee. Christopher Columbus himself wrote about encountering mermaids in the Caribbean in 1493, though he admitted they were, quote, not as beautiful as they are painted. Harsh, but understandable. Manatees are large, gentle marine mammals that can grow over 13 feet long and weigh more than 1,000 pounds. But when they float upright to breathe, cradle their young, and glance towards a ship, it's not hard to see why sailors, hyped up on rum and desperation, thought they'd found something magical. It's one of the clearest examples of myth meeting biology. If the manatee is the mermaid of the Atlantic, the dugong is her cousin in the Indian Ocean. These guys are smaller, more streamlined relatives of manatees, and they've also played a major role in mermaid lore across Southeast Asia, East Africa, and even Australia. What's eerie is how these guys nurse their babies. They do it upright, so if you're watching from a boat, it looks like a human woman holding a child while floating in the sea. Add long, flipper-like arms and a tail that tapers like the classic mermaid fin, and the illusion becomes downright spooky. Ancient cave paintings and oral traditions from Malaysia and Papua New Guinea depict sea women that match these guys' anatomy almost exactly. There's even evidence that early sailors created fertility charms modeled after them, thinking they'd witnessed a sacred being. Turns out mermaids might have had tusks and whiskers this whole time. It has the body of an eel, the head of a dragon, and teeth like a medieval torture device. Meet the frilled shark, one of the most bizarre and ancient creatures still swimming in the oceans today. This deep-sea predator can grow over 6 feet long and really hasn't changed much in over 80 million years. When it surfaces, which is rare, it sends shivers down the spine. Its gaping jaws are filled with over 300 needle-like teeth arranged in rows, and its body moves in snake-like waves, exactly the kind of horror that fuels darker mermaid legends. In Celtic and Scandinavian folklore, there are stories of sea maidens with sharp teeth who lured fishermen to their deaths. Japanese Ningyo tales describe mermaids with a grotesque face and a body like a serpent. Many of these descriptions match the frilled shark far more closely than the romanticized Disney version that we're used to. It's the kind of creature that makes you wonder if sailors are seeing mermaids or monsters. You're floating in calm waters when suddenly a massive silver ribbon glides beneath your boat. It's over 30 feet long, has glowing fins, and moves like it's dancing. That's not your imagination. That's an oarfish. These rare deep-sea dwellers are the longest bony fish in the ocean and live thousands of feet below the surface. But when they're sick or dying, they float upward, and that's when humans get a glimpse. Ancient sightings of sea serpents off the coasts of Norway, Greece, and even the Pacific Islands often describe shimmering finned creatures with a crown-like head. That matches the oarfish almost perfectly. In Japanese folklore, oarfish are known as messengers from the sea god's palace, and their appearance is believed to predict earthquakes. Some Pacific Island legends also talk about sea queens, or glowing maidens, who rise before disaster. Coincidence? Maybe. But when you see the oarfish in motion, it's easy to understand how one fish could launch 1,000 mermaid stories. Alright, so technically not a sea creature, but stick with me. The axolotl might be one of the strangest and most mythical animals on Earth. Found only in the ancient lakes and canals of Mexico, these little amphibians have gills like feathery crowns, wide eyes, and permanently smiling faces. They also have the rare ability to regenerate entire limbs and even parts of their brain. To the Aztecs, the axolotl wasn't just an animal, it was a god. They believed it was the transformation of Xolotl, the twin brother of Quetzalcoatl, who turned himself into a water creature to escape sacrifice. The word axolotl even translates to water dog or water spirit. In Mesoamerican mermaid folklore, there are stories of guild women who live in sacred lakes and healed the sick. It's easy to imagine a culture encountering a glowing, smiling, regenerating water creature and building entire legends around it. In fact, many locals still believe axolotls bring luck and that harming one invites a curse. That's a lot of weight for one little smiling amphibian. In our number 5 spot today, we have the mermaid POV. Okay, we've already had a shark POV on this list today, but now we've got a video from the POV of an actual mermaid. I guess this video is like what would happen if mermaids could go live. Imagine diving into the deep blue from the very eyes of a mermaid herself. This video immerses you into an underwater world like no other. The footage starts with an intimate close-up of delicate neck gills, subtly moving as the mermaid breathes beneath the surface. Her graceful hands glide through the water, fingers trailing along vibrant coral and swaying seaweed, showcasing an elegance that feels almost otherworldly. As she navigates through the ocean currents, the camera captures her seamless movements, blending effortlessly with the surrounding marine life. Every moment is filled with wonder, making you question whether these enchanting beings truly exist or if it's all just an elaborate illusion crafted by nature's magic. Could this POV footage be the real proof that we've been searching for? In our number 4 spot today, we have the Zimbabwe mermaid. Imagine strolling along the tranquil waters beneath a bridge in Zimbabwe when suddenly something extraordinary catches your eye. In this video, the camera swiftly zooms in to reveal a mesmerizing, mermaid-like creature perched gracefully on a rocky shore. Her shimmering tail flicks in the sunlight as she moves from one rock to another, showcasing a blend of creepy movements and a ton of mystery. In the background, another figure can be seen moving by the pillars of the bridge, making this a rare time when possibly 2 mermaids were caught on tape at the same time. As the mermaid swings her tail and hops onto different rocks, her movements are so unhuman-like that it leaves a creepy feeling behind. Just as quickly as she appears, she slips behind the bridge, leaving viewers wondering if they've witnessed a true legend or an elaborate illusion. Could this enchanting creature truly inhabit the waters of Zimbabwe, or is it a stunning glimpse into the mythical world we've always dreamed of? In our number 3 spot today, we have the siren call. This video was posted to TikTok by the user Megpie7, and it shows the call of a siren being heard. The video starts off with Meg just casually fishing off the dock in the night. Meg probably thought she was gonna have a nice, calm evening. Little did she know she was about to make quite the catch. The concept of the siren call has its roots deep in ancient Greek mythology, where sirens were depicted as enchanting yet perilous creatures. Originally portrayed as part bird and part woman, sirens inhabited remote islands and were famous for their mesmerizing songs. These alluring melodies were so captivating that they would lure sailors off course, causing them to crash their ships onto rocky shores. One of the most famous tales involving sirens is found in Homer's Odyssey, where the hero Odysseus orders his crew to plug their ears with beeswax and have himself tied to the mast to safely navigate past the siren's irresistible song. Over time, the image of sirens has evolved, often blending with mermaid folklore to become more human-like, featuring beautiful women with fishtails. This is all to say that what this video captures is pretty insane and might really be something that is the stuff of legends. In our number 2 spot today, we have the real mermaid. I'll be honest, this video doesn't really have me totally convinced, but I couldn't leave it out of this list today. This video was posted to YouTube and it just features some guys hanging out at what looks like some kind of freshwater river. They start off the video by saying that they are on a mermaid hunt and that this specific body of water always draws them in. Maybe it's the siren call that they're unknowingly hearing. Before long, they turn the camera toward the water and one of the men points out what we are all waiting to see. Just beneath the surface of the water, you can see the silhouette of a mermaid as she glides on by. The men quickly make quips about how it's strange to see such a creature in a freshwater setting as opposed to the usual salt water we would expect, but to be honest, does it really matter when we're talking about a fictional creature? Probably not, but I can definitely appreciate the attention to detail. And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have the Australian Barrier Reef. Imagine diving into the vibrant, kaleidoscopic waters of the Great Barrier Reef, where every coral formation bursts with color and life. As schools of tropical fish weave through the swaying sea anemones, a graceful figure glides into view. A stunning mermaid with a shimmering tail that mirrors the reef's brilliant hues. Her movements are fluid and mesmerizing, seamlessly blending with the surrounding marine life as she swims gracefully past intricate coral structures. The video, captured by an awe-inspired snorkeler, perfectly balances the natural beauty of the reef with the mysterious allure of this mythical creature. Could this be real proof that mermaids share these pristine waters with us, or is it just a trick of light and perspective? As the footage spread across social media, it sparked debate, keeping the legend of mermaids alive and more captivating than ever. Whether a genuine glimpse into a hidden world or a stunning piece of underwater artistry, this video continues to inspire our dreams of what lies beneath the surface.
In Okayama Prefecture in Japan, there's a mysterious mummy that's been unsettling people for centuries, and that's because it's supposedly a mermaid mummy. It's about 30 centimeters long, with the upper body of what looks like a human or humanoid and the lower body of a fish. It still has hair on its head, teeth, nails, and scales, and its face is frozen in what looks like this silent scream, with its hands pulled up toward its mouth. The artifact's been kept at a temple in Asakuchi, where some people worship it. The temple's chief priest compared the mummy to Amabie, a mythical creature that's said to protect people from plagues. Supposedly, it also grants immortality to whoever tastes its flesh. The mummy, I mean, and I'm not sure anyone's been brave enough to try. According to an old note stored with the mummy, it was supposedly caught in a fishing net somewhere off the coast of Tosa province between 1736 and 1741. Over time, it passed through several hands before ending up at the temple. For years, the mummy was displayed in a glass case for visitors, but now it's stored safely in a fireproof box to protect it from falling apart. Just recently though, researchers from Kurashiki University of Science and the Arts, along with some folklore experts, started studying the mummy for the first time. They're using tests like CT scans and DNA analysis to figure out what it's actually made of. Some mermaid mummies in Japan have been proven to be crafted fakes, usually made by stitching together parts of fish and monkeys, but this one hasn't been officially confirmed yet. Hiroshi Kinoshita, who helped to launch the project, says it's a chance to explore not just whether it's real, but what it means in Japanese folklore. For more than 50 years, people in Hawaii have claimed to see a mermaid swimming off the coast of Big Island, but the story is usually written off as local legends. That changed in 1998 when a dive boat captain named Jeff Leitcher said he not only saw the creature, but managed to capture it on film. Leitcher, who runs Jack's Diving Locker, was out on April 12, 1998 with 6 other divers about 20 minutes from Hawaii's Kona coast when something strange happened. I'd heard about her before, Leitcher said. Most of us who are out in these waters regularly have heard stories, but I'd never seen her until that morning. While heading out toward Kaiwi Point, a school of dolphins began swimming alongside their boat when one of the crew members suddenly started shouting and pointing at the water. I couldn't believe what I saw. There, not 10 feet from the bow, was what looked like a nude woman, Leitcher said. She had long flowing hair and one of the most beautiful faces I've ever seen. But there's no way a human being could be swimming so fast. She was keeping right up with the dolphins. Leitcher said the creature then jumped out of the water and said the entire lower half of her was, quote, covered with scales and tapered back into a huge fishtail. She jumped once more, then disappeared under the surface. According to Leitcher, all 10 people on the boat saw it as well, but that wasn't the end of it. About an hour later, while diving at the point, Leitcher said he had another close encounter. Suddenly, I felt something brush against my right leg. She shot by me like a streak of lightning, then turned and came back past me, swimming the other way. I just aimed the camera and started snapping pictures. I kept shooting as she broke the surface and swam away. These photos photos here were later analyzed by 3 separate photography labs, which all concluded that the images had not been altered or tampered with. I feel very lucky that I'm the one to finally prove to the world what people here have known for half a century, Leiter said. The Kaiwi Point mermaid is real. Back in 2012, Zimbabwe ran into a strange problem at a couple of dam sites. Workers were so scared of mermaids that they just straight up abandoned their posts. Water Resources Minister Sam Sepepa Nkomo explained the situation during a Senate meeting, saying that workers believed mermaids were living in the reservoirs and pulling people underwater. Were so freaked out that they refused to come back. And hey, fair enough. Doesn't sound worth it to me either. There are plenty of jobs that don't involve getting dragged underwater and drowned by mythical creatures. To try and fix the issue though, the government brought in traditional chiefs to perform rituals to get rid of these mermaids. Nkomo said these ceremonies were done to, quote, exorcise mermaids believed to inhabit reservoirs. Now, thinking the problem might just be some local superstition, Nkomo also tried hiring foreign workers, figuring they wouldn't buy into the stories. But even those workers ended up reporting weird sightings and refused to continue the job. Some people, including Nkomo himself, wondered if dangerous water currents might have been to blame here instead of anything supernatural. But whatever the case, the government went ahead with the traditional rituals to calm everyone down, get work moving again. So I have no idea what really went on here, but what a bizarre story.
Picture a fish-like creature that washes up on shore with glowing scales, a monkey-like mouth, and hauntingly human eyes. It sounds made up, right? In Japan, this being is called the Ningyo, and it's part of local folklore for centuries. Some versions of the story say that eating its flesh grants immortality, but also comes with a terrifying curse. But here's where things get strange. Some historians and researchers believe these stories may have stemmed from real sightings of grotesque deep-sea animals like the stargazer fish, which buries itself in sand with its upward-facing, human-like eyes exposed. Others think fishermen stumbled upon rotting specimens of rarely seen species, mistook them for supernatural beings, and preserved them. In fact, some preserved Ningyo mummies still exist in Japanese temples. They're disturbing, misshapen hybrids, usually stitched together from fish and monkey parts, but the devotion they've received over the years suggests people really believed they were once alive. Whether hoax, hybrid, or hallucination, the Ningyo legend might just be the creepiest mermaid origin story of all. If you've ever walked along a beach and found a small black pouch with curled tendrils at each corner, congratulations, you found a mermaid's purse. At least that's what folklore called them. In truth, they're the egg cases of sharks, skates, and rays. But for centuries, no one knew that. Old mariners believed these mysterious, leathery pods were literal mermaid eggs. Some said they'd fallen off a mermaid as she climbed onto the rocks. Others claimed finding one meant a sea maiden was nearby spying on humans. In Celtic and Norse legends, these purses were seen as omens, either blessings or curses, depending on the tide and where they were found. It wasn't until marine biology advanced in the 19th century that scientists figured out that these were actually baby shark nurseries. But the nickname mermaid's purse stuck, and to this day, many kids grow up calling them that. It's one of those rare cases where a myth and a scientific fact overlap, because the ocean never gives up its secrets all at once. Okay, this one's gonna sound weird. Sea cucumbers are basically squishy blobs that crawl along the ocean floor, but in several Pacific Island and Southeast Asian legends, they're not just sea slugs, they're shapeshifters. In Polynesian myth, there are tales of sea beings that could morph into women, walk on land, seduce fishermen, and then slip back into the sea as a boneless creature. It sounds like fantasy, but here's where it gets interesting. Some species of sea cucumber can eject their internal organs when threatened and then regrow them. Others can liquefy their bodies and slide through tiny crevices. Early sailors, unfamiliar with these bizarre defense mechanisms, believed sea cucumbers were magical or cursed. In Micronesia, elders speak of ocean spirits with bodies that, quote, melted into the waves. It's not hard to connect the dots between a regenerating, shape-shifting sea creature and the more bizarre mermaid myths. This is nature playing its weirdest cards, and humans as always, turning those cards into stories. Now imagine it's nighttime. The fog rolls in, the only sound is the gentle lapping of waves until a guttural, human-like wail echoes from the rocks. You're not hallucinating. That scream? It's an elephant seal. Northern elephant seals are massive. Males can grow over 4,000 pounds, and they make some of the eeriest sounds in the animal kingdom. During mating season, they bellow and howl in ways that are disturbingly close to human cries. Early explorers along the California and Alaskan coasts described seeing, quote, grotesque mermaids on the shore. Bloated bodies, long faces, wide eyes. Many of these reports likely described elephant seals in the middle of a fight or mating display. There are also Inuit stories of sea women with tragic voices who lured hunters too far from land. Some of those tales might have been inspired by real-life encounters with these beasts. It's a reminder that sometimes the creepiest mermaids aren't graceful or seductive, they are loud, aggressive, and built like a refrigerator with flippers. Our final creature might be the least mermaid-like, but it also might be the most terrifying. The deep-sea anglerfish looks like a demon from a nightmare. The females are huge compared to the males. They have bioluminescent lures growing from their heads and mouths lined with translucent, inward-pointing teeth. They live over a mile deep in the ocean, so deep that sunlight doesn't reach them, and when they rise towards the surface, usually only when dead or dying, they are absolutely horrifying to witness. I'm sure we all remember the anglerfish that went viral on TikTok earlier this year. I miss her. Some siren legends from Greece and West Africa mention sea women who glowed in the dark, hypnotized sailors with strange lights, and devoured men whole. Sound a little familiar? Scientists didn't get a full view of a live anglerfish until the early 2000s. Before that, all we had were creepy, half-rotted specimens. Imagine one of those washing up on shore in the Middle Ages. You'd absolutely think it was a demon or a sea witch. In a way, anglerfish are the purest proof that the ocean has always been full of creatures so bizarre, so alien that our minds did what they always do, turn them into myths.
Back in 1842, a man named P.T. Barnum, now remembered as the king of circus hoaxes, showed off something he was calling the Fiji mermaid at his American Museum in New York. Burnham described it himself as an ugly, dried-up, black-looking diminutive specimen, giving it the appearance of having died in great agony. Well, sign me up. People just lined up like crazy to see this thing, a shriveled little corpse with a fish tail and a bony humanoid torso. For a while, people thought they were staring at the remains of a real mermaid. But it turns out this was stitched together by Japanese fishermen, basically the upper half of a monkey sewn to the lower half of a fish. But here's what's pretty interesting. Even after Burnham admitted it was fake, people kept showing up. It worked because they just wanted to believe. I mean, plus, that just sounds like a wild thing to see in person. Versions of the Fiji mermaid still pop up today in Ripley's museums and roadside sideshows, sometimes made from turtles, sometimes stuffed with paper and glue, but that creepy, janky look is always the same. P.T. Barnum's mermaid took a very old Japanese tradition and brought it to the West, kicking off a whole wave, see what I did there, of mermaid obsession over here. This tiny stitched up thing ended up shaping what a lot of us picture when we hear the words mermaid skeleton. In 2012, this odd looking thing was displayed at the Danish National Museum. It looked like the skeleton of a mermaid. Human bones up top, a long tail instead of legs. There was also a plaque by the display with a very official scientific sounding name, Hydronymphus pesky, like this was some long-lost species that had finally been discovered, and for a while people actually thought it might be legit. The whole thing was actually built by an artist named Millet Rude. It's not entirely fake though. She did use real human bones for the top half. It gives it some authenticity for sure. The tail she made herself though, and she did a damn good job because it looks pretty convincing to me. And then it ended up touring around galleries and zoos, and people kept taking pictures and calling this proof of mermaids. Even now, images of the display are still shared around online, and without context, some swear it's real. It's not, it's just a really good art piece that fooled a lot of people. This isn't the only time Denmark's had a weird encounter with mermaid bones, though. Speaking of mermaid skeletons showing up in odd places, take a look at this. A lot of Copenhagen locals were pretty surprised to see a skeleton with a fishtail while strolling along the waterfront, especially because they're used to seeing this. So one of the most famous tourist spots in Copenhagen is the Little Mermaid statue. It's a small bronze sculpture, only about 4 feet tall, made by Erik Erikson, and based on Hans Christian Andersen's famous fairy tale, The Little Mermaid. The statue's been sitting on a rock by the harbor since 1913, and millions of people have visited, taken photos with it, and called it a national treasure. But in 2010, something unusual happened. The statue was temporarily moved to Shanghai to be part of the Danish pavilion at the World Expo. It stayed there for months from March to November, which left her rock back in Copenhagen completely empty. That's when someone came up with a funny idea. On April 1st, 2010, a mermaid skeleton suddenly appeared near the statue's usual spot. It was sitting in the same pose as the original statue, and for 2 hours people gathered and took photos, entertained but confused and maybe even a little creeped out. I mean, did some wacko attach a fishtail to a human skeleton and put it out on display as some sick joke? Well, kinda. These were actually human bones from the hips up attached to the tail of a swordfish. It was made a few years earlier as part of a museum exhibit about mythical creatures. The prank was put together by Hans Strager, who was the head of exhibitions at the time. Got tons of attention and became one of the most talked about mermaid sightings in Denmark. Around 2011, photos started popping up online of what looked like a pale, half-decayed mermaid corpse lying on the banks of the Vltava River in Bulgaria. People went wild over this. Headlines screaming "mermaid found" were all over social media, and it makes sense. I mean, if you randomly came across these images at a time before AI could just render stuff like this in 20 seconds, you'd probably do a double take. The thing looked freaky: scaly skin, webbed fingers, and that ghostly pale look with a human-ish shape. Not only that, but it just looked a little too real. But this was actually a super detailed movie prop. The figure was eventually traced back to a man named Joel Harlow, the special effects artist behind Pirates of the Caribbean. It turns out he'd made this mermaid corpse for the films. Somehow, it ended up in the river though. Whether as a prank or entirely by accident, no one's really sure. In the summer of 2019, people hanging out on the beach in Worthing, England spotted something strange leaning against one of the wooden barriers that break up the shoreline. From a distance, it looked like a human skeleton, but the legs were fused together like a tail. Up close, you could see the ribcage and skull looked pretty real. A man named Ben Merchant was one of the first to spot the thing and snapped a photo of it. For a few hours, it had everyone staring and wondering if this thing had actually washed up from the sea. Well, once again, this was an art piece made by local sculptor Rosie Lee. She'd been given part of a skeleton and asked to turn it into something eye-catching. So she created the tail and posed the bones to mimic a mermaid. It didn't fool any scientists, but it still creeped a few people out. Now, just what exactly is this sound? It was recorded by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, in 1991, and to this day nobody knows what it is, so, I mean, it's gotta be mermaids, right? The upsweep is one of those deep-sea mysteries that scientists still haven't been able to fully explain. What's cool is that unlike other weird ocean sounds that were only picked up once, the upsweep's been recorded every year since 1991. It seems to follow a seasonal pattern, getting louder during certain times of the year and then fading. But even after decades of listening, no one's been able to figure out exactly where it's coming from. Some researchers think it could be connected to volcanic activity deep under the ocean, but some others wonder if the sound might actually be coming from some unknown sea creature we haven't discovered yet. We always hear vague stories about mermaid sightings way back in the day, but do we have any specific accounts? Well, yes, quite a bit actually. In 1603, for example, a farmer named Thomas Reynolds saw what looked like a mermaid in the water off the coast of Wales near Pendine. He called over other people and together they watched the creature for about 3 hours. According to their description, the creature was partly human with the upper body of a woman, but from the waist down it looked like a fish. A man named William Saunders, another local, took the time to carefully examine what Reynolds and the other witnesses had seen. He listened to their stories and found their accounts believable enough to document everything. In fact, the sighting was taken seriously enough that in 1604, just a year later, the story showed up in the paper, along with an illustration to show what they described. The mermaid was recorded as a, quote, monstrous fish that appeared in the form of a woman from her waist upward. A guy in South Africa claimed to have spotted a mermaid-like creature in 2008 in the small village of Surbrak. A man named Daniel Cupido and his mother Dina were near the river around 11:30 at night when they heard a loud banging noise. Cupido said it sounded like someone bashing on a wall, so he went to check it out, and when he got closer, Cupido said he saw something strange thrashing. He described the figure as looking like a, quote, white woman with long black hair thrashing about in the water. Concerned, he tried to help, but as he approached, the creature let out this strange sound that his mother said was so sorrowful her heart couldn't take it anymore. Some believe that what they saw that night may have been what's called a caiman, and I don't mean like caiman like the alligator type animal. The caiman is said to be a half-human, half-fish creature that lives in deep river pools. Surbrak tourism officer Maggie Gentry supported the group's story too, saying she personally knew the witnesses and made it clear that they were not people who drank heavily or made up stories. She said she trusted their word and believed that they genuinely saw something that night. Between 1887 and 1913, people along the coast of Deerness and the Orkney Islands kept spotting something strange in the water. Dozens of people, farmers, fishermen, and tourists, reported seeing the same thing over and over. The creature became known as the Deerness mermaid. One witness described it like this: "It is about 6 to 7 feet in length, has a little black head with neck, a snow-white body and 2 arms, and in swimming, it just appears like a human being. At times it will appear to be siding on a sunken rock and will wave and work its hands." Sightings like this became so frequent in the summer that it pretty much became a part of the local culture. People even wrote plays about it. And then in 1913, off the southeastern coast of Hawaii, another group had their own run-in with something that matched the same description. A fisherman named Ralph Taylor and his crew saw what they thought was a mermaid while checking their lobster pots. Taylor described the account as follows: "It rose out of the water to the height of 3 feet and looked like a lady with a shawl round her shoulders and streaming down her face." The ningen is a mysterious sea creature that people in Japan have reported seeing over the last several years, and it sounds a little bit like a mermaid. Not the beautiful mermaid we all think of, but a mermaid-like creature. The ningen is said to live in the icy waters of the Antarctic and is described as completely white, human-shaped, and can grow up to 20 to 30 meters long. Witnesses say the creature sometimes has arms, legs, 5-fingered hands, fins, tails. One sighting came from a whale research ship. First, the crew thought they were looking at a foreign submarine, but when they got closer, realized what they were actually looking at was a living creature, which quickly disappeared back under the water. In November of 2007, MU Magazine published a Google Earth screenshot that seemed to capture the ningen in the South Atlantic Ocean. There have been rumors that the Japanese government keeps detailed records of ningen sightings, but hasn't made any of them public.
In 2005, a team of commercial divers working off the coast of Baranof Island in Alaska reportedly encountered something terrifying while performing maintenance on deep-sea pipeline. According to a declassified safety report from the contractor, 2 divers surfaced early, shaken and refusing to go back down. One claimed he saw a, quote, human face with gills staring at him from a crevice in a rock. They described the creature as having webbed hands, reflective eyes, and scales that shimmered in their flashlight beams. Locals weren't surprised. In fact, some Inuit legends speak of sea people who dwell near that exact region. They even have a name: the Kalupalik, mermaid-like beings that lure people underwater with a hum you can only hear when submerged. High up on the windswept cliffs of the Faroe Islands, a remote chain in the North Atlantic, there is a cave that few people dare enter. Inside are carvings, ancient ones, etched into the rock. They clearly depict human fish hybrids drawn with long hair, webbed hands, and tails. According to local historians, these markings predate Christian influence in the area and may have been created by Norse explorers. But here's the twist. One panel shows what appears to be a mermaid holding a dead man's head. Creepy? Absolutely. But archaeologists can't deny the authenticity, and some believe the site was a ritual space used to ask protection from sea spirits during voyages. These weren't just artistic depictions, they were warnings. In 2013, an offshore oil rig operating in the Gulf of Mexico experienced a strange sonar reading. Something large, fast, and warm-blooded was circling the base of the platform. Assuming it was a shark, divers went to inspect the structure, but returned reporting, quote, "something strange watching us from the shadows." One diver swore he saw a pale-skinned human-like figure swimming against the current with almost no effort. He said it had no breathing apparatus, yet it was moving at least 60 feet down. Internal emails from the rig, later leaked online, referred to it as, quote, "the mermaid incident." No formal statement was ever released, and the crew involved were reassigned shortly after. Most people think of the Fiji mermaid as a 19th century hoax, an ugly little thing that turned out to be a monkey sewn to a fish. But here's what most people don't know. There were dozens of reports of similar creatures in the South Pacific long before it became a circus attraction. Fishermen from the islands have passed down stories for generations of a creature with glowing eyes and silver fins that comes to surface during storms. Some researchers believe the, quote, "original Fiji mermaid," shown by P.T. Barnum, may have been a poorly preserved copy of something real because other specimens that looked nearly identical were reportedly destroyed by British colonists trying to, quote, "clean up native beliefs." In 1978, a geologist hiking near Iceland stumbled across a strange fossil embedded in a rock wall. It looked like a partial skeleton, with a humanoid rib cage, scaled lower limbs, and elongated finger bones. He turned it over to the University of Iceland for study, and then it vanished. To this day, only photographs remain. Some experts suggested it was a hoax or misidentified fish bones, but the proportions didn't match any known marine species. What's stranger is that mermaid sightings are extremely common in Icelandic folklore, especially in that region. Locals believe that fossil was proof of an evil sea witch believed to lure sailors into whirlpools and drown them.
Holy crap, this thing is terrifying. I mean, I think I'd rather come across just about anything else washed up on the beach than this. Surprisingly, this freakish looking thing actually showed up on eBay. It isn't listed on there anymore. These photos were shared way back in 2006, but someone bid on this thing. There were so many stories floating around about these mysterious images at the time. Some stories went that the creature was found in Mexico, others said South Africa, the Philippines, the list goes on. But apparently someone came across this thing while exploring Fort de Soto Beach at the southern end of St. Petersburg, Florida. At least that's what the online auction said. Just keep it the hell away from me. In July of 2023, a woman named Bobby Lee Oates was driving along Keppel Sands in Queensland, Australia, looking for a place to camp when something weird caught her eye on the beach. It was this decayed, half-buried skeleton with a long, stretched-out tail and what looked like a human skull sitting right at the top. She snapped some photos and described it as exactly like a mermaid shape. The ribs were showing, the limbs were mostly gone, but the way the bones were laid out, it really did look like some creepy, washed-up sea creature. And when the images hit the internet, they went viral. Some thought it might have been a kangaroo leg stretched out and mangled by the ocean. Others said it looked like a badly decomposed dolphin or seal. Marine experts eventually stepped in and said, yeah, it was probably just one of those, just a gross beached carcass, but till this day, we still don't know exactly what this thing was. So technically, we can't rule out mermaids altogether. In 2006, locals in a small town in Malaysia came across this tiny, dried-up mermaid mummy about a foot long. It had a shriveled face, little arms, and a tail. In 2014, another one appeared, this time in Papua New Guinea. Almost identical, leathery skin, tiny claws, and that unmistakable mermaid tail. Once again, these were your classic carnival props. The mummies were made by stitching a smaller mammal or monkey's torso onto a fishtail, then drying the whole thing out to look old and mummy-like. These fake mermaids were all over Southeast Asia in the 19th and early 20th centuries, sold to curious tourists and local curiosities collectors. No DNA tests or CT scans have been done on these particular ones, but based on what we know, they're pretty much exactly the same kind of monkey-fish hybrids that P.T. Barnum used in his sideshows. This video is filmed right after a hurricane. We watch as the person holding the camera walks along a beach covered in fallen trees and debris. Then they spot something strange washed up on the sand. At first glance, looks like a big dead fish, but as the camera gets closer, you notice there's hair on it. The person filming keeps moving in and we get a better look. This looks to be a gnarly, mummified mermaid. And not the beautiful, magical version we like to imagine. To be fair, none of the entries on this list really have been. At best, they've been skeleton bones, and at the worst, they've been freakish looking monsters. Now, sure, we've already established that something like this could be faked, and you probably shouldn't need me to tell you that, but if this is a hoax, it's pretty well done. One of the top comments on the video from user Cajun2197 says, "I have seen real mummies. This looks frighteningly real. The skin pulled back around the mouth as it dried, bulging eyes, taut cheekbones, the ribs and pelvis under dark, dried flesh. The fins brittle, exactly like a dead fish drying in the sun." In a temple in Okayama, Japan, there's this tiny 12-inch mermaid that people thought had been caught in a fishing net sometime between 1736 and 1741. It's kept in a box, sometimes displayed in a glass case. The legend goes that eating the flesh could make you live forever. But scientists from Kurashiki University CT scanned it and found almost no real bones inside. The torso is mostly cloth, paper, cotton, even sand and charcoal held together by metal pins. On the surface, they did find fish skin and mammal hair, pufferfish parts on the arms, and the jaw and teeth from a predatory fish, plus claws that looked like they came from a lizard. The CT scans showed clear wooden stakes running through it to keep the shape intact, but it's still pretty cool because it is an old artifact. Radiocarbon dating says it probably dates to the late 1800s. Legends have long depicted mermaids as sirens of the sea, luring sailors with their beautiful songs. The idea of mermaids singing haunting melodies dates back centuries and spans across different cultures. So really, sound is one of the most integral parts of mermaid lore. In many tales, their voices are described as both enchanting and unsettling, able to draw people into the depths of the ocean, sometimes never to be seen again. Take the famous story of the sirens from Greek mythology, for instance. These creatures sang irresistible songs that led sailors to shipwreck on rocky shores. Similarly, in Irish folklore, the Marrow, a mermaid-like creature, was known for her beautiful voice, often depicted as singing while combing her hair on the rocks. But not all mermaid songs are sweet and melodic. Some are described as mournful or eerie. But are these stories just myths and legends, or could there be some truth to them? The ocean is vast, mysterious, and most of it is unexplored. So let's talk about some of the eeriest unexplained sounds in more modern times. One of the most unnerving sounds ever recorded in our oceans is known as the upsweep, which has earned its place on the NOAA's list of unidentified underwater noises, and for good reason. First heard back in 1991, the upsweep is a series of high-pitched sounds that rise in frequency almost like an eerie musical scale going up and up. Just imagine listening to it while alone on a boat in the vast Pacific Ocean. I mean, you wouldn't technically be able to hear it without fancy equipment, but let's just say you did have some for some reason. It'd be pretty unnerving. Scientists have some theories as to what made this sound, but none are definitive answers. Some think it could be related to geological activity, others imagine it being the calls of unknown creatures deep in the abyss. The bio-twang. This sound was recorded in 2014 in the depths of the Mariana Trench, which already makes this one pretty creepy. Just the thought of hearing something from the deepest, darkest parts of the ocean makes this sound feel extra eerie. When scientists first picked up the bio-twang, they were pretty puzzled. The sound has a strange, almost mechanical quality to it, which is why it was given the name Western Pacific bio-twang. Sharon Newkirk, a senior faculty research assistant in marine bioacoustics, Acoustics at Oregon State University described it as, quote, very distinct. She pointed out that the low-frequency moaning part is typical of baleen whales, but that twangy part really sets it apart from anything else. In fact, it's rare to find new vocalizations from baleen whales. So what exactly could have made the noise? Is it an odd call from a whale, or could it be something else? I'm not so sure the noise fits with what we typically imagine mermaids sounding like, but who the hell knows? Next up, we have the whistle. On July 7th, 1997, something bizarre got picked up by a single hydrophone, which is like an underwater microphone. The source of the sound, dubbed the whistle, has still never been identified. It's this ultra-low frequency noise that sounds kind of like a whistle, but really deep and eerie. Picture the sound you'd make if you blew air through a tiny gap between your lips, but imagine that echoing through the depths of the ocean. Despite tons of research and speculation, nobody knows for sure what made this noise. Some say it could be a new type of marine animal communicating in a way we haven't figured out yet, like a mermaid. Recorded back in 1997, the slowdown sound is a series of low-frequency sounds that rise and fall in a rhythmic pattern. Check it out. It's very haunting. It sounds almost like a subway train pulling into the station, except deep underwater. It's definitely not a sound you'd want to hear if you were out on the water alone. But scientists have never been able to 100% determine what it is. Some think it might be related to natural geological activity, movements in the Earth's crust, or underwater volcanic eruptions, but some think it could be a vocalization from an unknown marine creature. Interestingly, the sound wasn't only recorded once. Since 1997, it's been heard a handful of times each year, which raises even more questions about what could be making this noise. Is it a natural phenomenon, or is there something deeper in the ocean producing these sounds?
During the Cold War, Soviet submarines patrolling near the Sea of Japan recorded something bizarre on their sonar. What sounded like high-pitched singing, followed by multiple fast-moving underwater objects surrounding their vessel. At first, the crew believed it was a foreign sub, but no signatures matched known technology. One sonar technician described the singing as, quote, almost human, but not quite. Years later, after the fall of the USSR, some of these logs were leaked to independent researchers. Many now believe the Soviets may have encountered the same mysterious beings that Pacific Island cultures describe as sea sisters, a group of female spirits or creatures who travel in pods, warning or punishing those who disturb the ocean. Off the island of Vis, off the Croatian coast, sailors have long spoken of sea girls who appear in the moonlight singing to fishermen. And in 2016, something strange happened. A group of night fishermen swore they saw 3 long-haired women sitting on coastal rocks. They were naked, appeared to shimmer in the moonlight, and vanished into the sea when approached. Initially laughed off by the public, the story gained traction when cell phone footage surfaced, brief and grainy, but showing 3 glowing shapes diving in unison. Marine biologists later confirmed the video showed, quote, no known animal behavior, and that area is now unofficially off limits to small boats at night. This one isn't a legend, it's actually a scientific theory with some strange implications. The aquatic ape hypothesis suggests that a branch of human evolution may have adapted to life in the water, developing traits like subcutaneous fat, breath control, and even partial webbing between fingers and toes. Mainstream science largely rejects it, but here's the strange part. People in remote coastal areas from Indonesia to Mozambique describe sightings of humanoid creatures with those exact features. Webbed hands, smooth hairless bodies, exceptional swimming speed. Could these be descendants of a lost evolutionary branch? Some anthropologists aren't laughing anymore, especially after scuba divers found handprints in underwater caves far deeper than any known human could reach without modern gear. In 1830s Louisiana, newspapers ran with a bizarre story. A fishwoman had been spotted multiple times along the banks of the Mississippi River near Baton Rouge. Witnesses described a creature with long black hair, pale skin, and fish-like lower limbs. The sightings caused panic, people refused to bathe or fish in the river, and boat captains rerouted cargo trips. What's wild is that these stories didn't go away. In 1842, a letter to the editor in the New Orleans Bee referenced an aquatic woman with haunting eyes spotted again, and even blamed her for a sunken steamboat. While no physical evidence ever surfaced, the consistency and fear surrounding these sightings make them stand out among American mermaid lore. In 2021, a team of researchers studying glacial melt near Greenland dropped a deep-sea camera into a subglacial cave. What they captured shocked them. A figure, upright, bipedal, but unmistakably aquatic. This creature hovered in the background for several seconds before darting away. The footage was dismissed by officials as, quote, distorted data, but the researchers who collected it told a different story in private. According to them, they reviewed the raw footage frame by frame and watched as the figure turned its head toward the camera, revealing wide-set eyes and thin gill slits. They called them shadow divers, beings that exist on the edge of where life should be possible. And if you ask them off the record, they'll say that we are not alone down there.
Sauce90 is a TikToker who just so happens to work on these giant boats in the ocean. Now, he's had a lot of terrifying encounters with some sort of creatures out there, and many think these creatures are mermaids or sirens. Now, he recorded a video with two creatures swimming on either side of the huge ship. Now, they were moving very quickly, keeping up the pace, which is honestly insane. He knew that they weren't dolphins or anything and asked people for help in identifying them, and a lot of people speculated, hey, these could be mermaids. Then there was another video he made with these same two swimming creatures, and they were making the strangest noises ever. Now, this made people think that they were sirens, as sirens are said to sing songs to hypnotize sailors and make them go into the water. Now, the noises are truly unsettling, and in one clip you can hear one of them say, "Jump for me." I would go back inside the boat and never come out again, because again, that is just terrifying and freaky and makes me think that they're evil. Then there was the mermaid story from Tony Woods. Tony is a comedian, but I can promise you he wasn't joking about any of this. Now, when he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, he explained that he had seen a mermaid, or what he calls a merman, in real life in Seychelles, Africa. He was with a little French boy, and people in the community said don't swim in the lagoon after dark. He then said that there was a lot of people at the bar and that he and the boy raced down to the lagoon, which they were warned about, but they didn't listen. While down there, they saw something swimming fast and it then jumped out of the water. He said it was at least 10 to 12 feet long and made eye contact with him. Now, obviously, the pair got scared and went back to the bar where everyone was, but no one believed them. The boy's mother apologized, saying he had an overactive imagination, but Tony swears that he saw this creature too. He said it wasn't a mermaid, but a merman, that it had dark skin and was half human, half fish. His head was humanoid, eyes were so big. Now, Tony says he's not the only one to have seen something like that in the area, which makes him believe what he saw was even more real. And I mean, the way that he tells this story, the body language, the inflection, it just feels so real to me. And we do know that there have been multiple sightings in Africa of mermaids, and all I can say is at least Tony had a witness with him when he saw what he saw, but wow, what a crazy story. And then a user on Reddit told this story that is absolutely terrifying. They said that they saw a mermaid once in 2004 when they were in Jamaica. They were at a bridge called Flat Bridge, which is known for its mermaid sightings. Now, they decided to go close to the water, and as they got closer, they saw a woman resting beside a rock. They described her as having her hair being red and her skin very dark. Now, as they got closer, they realized that she was a fishy type of woman with dark eyes. Now, this obviously scared the user, and they said they almost passed out from fear. They then screamed "mermaid" over and over and over again, and the creature became scared and swam away really fast. Now, the user thought that they were going crazy, but spoke to the locals, who told them that mermaids do exist and that it's normal in Jamaica. They then said not to get too close or the mermaids could take you underwater. And yeah, I think I'd have the same reaction as this person, because that is terrifying. mermaids are real. Don't believe me? Well, what about this recent sighting in Australia? I mean, a mermaid literally washed up on a beach there. In July 2023, photos of a creature resembling a mermaid alien washed ashore on an Australian beach. Now, the image came to light via a post in the Marine Biology Facebook group, and it was exactly like a mermaid shape, said uploader Bobby Lee Oates, 34, of the skeletal remains, which she stumbled across while walking along the beach in Couple Sands, Queensland. We were driving along the beach looking for a campsite, and we couldn't help but notice how much the skull looked to be in the shape of a human, she recalled. So we instantly stopped from the confusion as to what the hell this could be, and why does this look like a human skull? Now, Bobby Lee, who estimated that the creature was 6 feet long, described it by saying it had a human-shaped skull with an elongated jawline, and hair similar to the color of a cow or kangaroo, but with hair missing in many places due to decomposition. She continued by saying it was exactly like a mermaid shape, but hairy, because it seemed to have a tail or limb of some sort. Now, she posted the image to try to figure out what the creature was, but never got a definitive answer. So could this be some sort of mermaid? I think so.
From a now deleted Reddit user comes a story about an experience a man had while at the beach. He writes, "I'm posting here because I don't know where else to post and ask about this. I was at the beach with some family. My daughter and I were in the water, maybe 100 yards or so offshore. I was maybe 15 feet out past her when I heard this noise. The only way I can describe it is radar, sonar-ish. It was deep, and I felt it. I've been around the ocean my whole life, 40 years, and never heard anything like this. Then I heard it again. I swam back to her and asked if she heard it. She said yes. I told her to mimic the sound, and she did. Then it happened one more time, and then a young guy yells over, 'Did you hear that?' That's scary. Is it possible, hypothetically, that if a submarine is offshore but close, you could hear it and feel the instruments? Otherwise, I have no explanation." Sticking with Reddit for a minute, one user named CrazyPrior5350 asked people to share some of the weirdest or creepiest sounds people had heard at sea. One user commented, "I've heard singing and speaking voices that didn't belong to anyone on the boat. It was just a little louder than a whisper, basically just loud enough that it was understandable. Everyone else heard it too, but it was oddly comforting instead of creepy." And yeah, this sounds a lot like the types of legends of mermaid sounds I discussed at the top of the video, doesn't it? And other commenters agreed. But one commenter did say that sound travels really easily on water, which is true, to which the user responded, "It has happened a few times with the boat I'm on being the only one in eyesight, but I usually chalk it up to stuff like that. Unless my nieces or nephews hear it too, then I say it's mermaids or something." The Arctic ping was a mysterious noise reported in 2016 near a small Inuit hamlet called Igloolik in Nunavut. Hunters in the area began to notice this strange pinging noise coming from the Fury and Hecla Strait, which is about 75 miles northwest of their community. What made the sound especially concerning wasn't just how odd it was, it actually seemed to be having a negative effect on the wildlife. The hunters found that the noise seemed to be scaring away the sea mammals that they rely on for food. The sound appeared to be originating from the sea floor. But it wasn't just a few locals hearing these sounds. It got serious enough that they had to call the military in to investigate. And the military claimed they couldn't find any concrete source of this pinging. So what are some possible explanations? Well, aside from mermaids, of course, I mean, that's obvious. One theory that was floating around was that Greenpeace activists might have been causing it, trying to scare off animals to protect them from hunters. This next underwater sound is still yet to be fully explained. Some think it may have been caused by an iceberg, but either way, it's still a super haunting recording. The eerie sound has been dubbed Julia and was captured by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. When the NOAA placed hydrophones deep in the ocean, they unexpectedly picked up this low-frequency sound resembling a haunting, almost ghostly moan. A lot of people who listen to this think that there's something so alive about the sound. It's like something only a living creature could make. And yeah, to me, totally sounds like some sort of large sea creature, or maybe a mermaid type animal. I don't know what it is about underwater recordings. There's something so unsettling about them. I think it's the way the sound carries underwater. You know, they have this very spacey, ethereal quality about them. I also think that's just the fear of the unknown. We picture ourselves submerged in the expanse of the dark depths of the sea before hearing a low, droning, lonely hum from something lurking in the distance. It's just creepy. The bloop is a famous underwater sound that has still yet to be 100% identified. So the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration was doing their thing. They were monitoring underwater sounds in the Pacific Ocean when they came across this eerie recording. The bloop was like nothing they had ever heard before. It was this crazy low frequency noise that lasted for an entire minute. People were going nuts trying to figure out what could have made such a sound. Of course, wild theories started flying around. Some folks thought it was some kind of massive sea creature, like a supersized version of Nessie or Kraken. Others were convinced that maybe it was aliens, because, you know, when we don't know what something is, it's got to be a ghost or aliens, right? But as it turns out, the NOAA scientists had a more down-to-earth explanation. They reckon that the bloop was caused by a huge chunk of ice breaking off from a glacier and falling into the ocean. You know, scientists are always trying to ruin the fun. I still like to think it's a sea creature. And again, the sea, the ocean, it's vast.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the Minnesota mermaid. Imagine this. A tranquil day by a Minnesota lakeside takes a wild turn when an Australian tourist captures something extraordinary on camera. Men dressed in bright yellow hazmat suits rush to the shore, carefully handling a mysterious figure with a shimmering green tail. The sunlight dances off the scales as they lift it from the water's edge, the tail flicking ever so slightly. Could this be one of the most convincing mermaid sightings ever caught on tape? The contrast of the hazmat suit against the natural backdrop only deepens the mystery. What could possibly require such caution and such secrecy? As the footage spreads, it leaves everyone buzzing with excitement and questions. Have we finally caught a real glimpse of the legendary creatures that have captivated our imaginations for centuries? In our number 9 spot today, we have the mermaid on a rock. Soaring above the shimmering Mediterranean waters of Israel, an aerial camera captures a moment that has mermaid enthusiasts buzzing worldwide. Amidst the rolling ocean waves, a solitary rock stands defiantly, and there, defying all expectations, a graceful mermaid makes her appearance. With her iridescent green tail glistening under the sun, she scuttles confidently across the rocky surface before plunging back into the depths with a splash that ripples through the water. The video, though very brief, is astonishingly clear, making it one of the most convincing mermaid sightings ever caught on tape. Could this enchanting creature be a real inhabitant of our oceans, or is it just an elaborate hoax fueled by our love for mythical legends? As the footage began to circulate online, it ignited debates and it fueled the imagination, leaving us all wondering if the age-old tales of mermaids might just hold a hint of truth after all. In our number 8 spot today, we have the swimming with dolphins. Okay, this video is giving major Ariel vibes, and it is exactly how I would like to picture a mermaid should they really be out there lurking in our oceans. In this mesmerizing footage, a stunning mermaid glides gracefully alongside a playful pod of dolphins, their sleek bodies moving in perfect harmony through the waves. At one thrilling moment, they all leap out of the water together, silhouetted against the horizon, making it hard to believe what your eyes are seeing. Filmed by an avid marine enthusiast, this video blurs the line between myth and reality, sparking debates. Could these enchanting creatures really coexist with our beloved marine mammals, or is this just an elaborate illusion crafted to revive ancient sea legends? As the video continues to circulate online, it definitely leaves us all wondering. In our number 7 spot today, we have GoPro on a shark. GoPro on a shark. Those are a few words I never thought I'd be putting together into a sentence, but it happened and it caught something insane. This video shows some fishermen, of course, putting a GoPro onto a shark and then releasing the shark to see what it captures. This is, I mean, a crazy but super interesting idea, but I'm sure no one expected what it was going to catch. The video is a bit murky considering this really is just a shark POV video, but this murkiness is exactly what makes every every movement feel mysterious and unpredictable. As the camera starts recording, something extraordinary happens. Amidst the shadows and swirling currents, faint, graceful figures begin to move alongside the shark. These silhouettes resemble the legendary mermaids we've all heard about, elegant tails flickering and flowing as they navigate the underwater world with ease. This brief but captivating footage has quickly become one of the most convincing mermaid sightings ever caught. Could these enchanting beings really share the depths with these powerful sharks, or is it just a trick of the light and water? In our number 6 spot today, we have the shipwreck. Imagine plunging into the shadowy depths of a sunken ship where every creak and ripple tells a story of forgotten voyages. In this convincing footage, an intrepid explorer documents their underwater adventure with a steady hand. As they navigate the eerie shipwreck, schools of fish scatter through the murky water, and suddenly, one fish appears to be struck by a spear. Just when you think the suspense can't build anymore, a flash of movement catches the camera's eye. A swift, half-humanoid creature darts through the wreckage, snatching the fish with lightning speed before disappearing into the darkness. This fleeting glimpse of what some describe as a marine alien species blurs the line between legend and reality, leaving viewers mesmerized and questioning what truly lies beneath the waves. Could this mysterious being be living proof that mermaids or other mysterious sea creatures are in fact real?
Then there were the soldiers who saw a type of mermaid. During World War II, Japanese soldiers were stationed in the Key Islands in Indonesia and had some weird encounters with what they said were mermaids. Now, the local villagers were familiar with these creatures and called them orang-iken, which translates to manfish. Now, these creatures were described as being around 150 centimeters tall, having spikes on the spine, shoulder, and neck. They were said to have pink salmon-colored skin and a mouth that resembled a carp. Now, rather than having a fishtail, these creatures had long arms and frog-like legs, both of which had talons at the end. Now, the Japanese soldiers recorded many different sightings, saying they even saw one on land, but they mostly seemed at home in the water. For one instance, a troop of soldiers claimed to see one of these creatures jump out of the water onto a nearby rock. Now, it turned and faced the soldiers and let out a gurgling, burping noise that didn't seem to be too friendly. Then they saw another creature moving smoothly in the water towards them as fast as any fish would. Now, not knowing the intention of the creatures, the soldiers started shooting at the rocks and into the water, only to have the creatures disappear from view. Now, a sergeant named Mr. Taro spoke to the villagers and requested if any of the orang-iken were captured, dead or alive, to contact him immediately. It was soon after that the chief summoned the general and, to his astonishment, saw with his own eyes the lifeless aquatic creature. Now, he described what he saw as roughly 4 foot 9 inches tall, pinkish skin, human-looking face and limbs, spikes along its head, and a mouth like a carp. Now, this just sounds like something out of a horror movie. Absolutely terrifying. Now, fishermen don't get scared too easily, as they see a lot of scary things being out in the middle of the ocean, but I doubt any of them ever thought that they would come face to face with a mermaid. Yep, you heard that right. Some fishermen accidentally caught a mermaid. In an alarming video, it appears that some fishermen caught a mermaid in a net, and they were so shocked that they accidentally dropped it back into the water. A clearly humanoid arm with a webbed hand reached back at them from the net, as if trying to grab the men. Now, the men lean back to avoid it, and the net slips and falls back into the ocean, with the mermaid escaping and them being left with questions. Now, is this legit? I think so. A user commented this on the video, and I agree. They said this video is amazing, almost a real proof about the existence of mermaids. Notice that the camera is unsteady, and it means that the situation took them by surprise. The creature trapped in the net is powerful and so desperate to get rid of it, and its aspect cannot correspond to a human being or any other animal. Now, it's understandable that the fishermen got in a panic and let it go back into the sea, but that was just so creepy. And finally, we have another story about an Australian mermaid, except this one is alive and well. A short clip was posted online of what could be a mermaid swimming among a reef. In 2007, a diver off the coast of Australia claimed to have encountered a real-life mermaid. In the footage, we see a diver filming a school of tropical fish in an unknown reef, and in the distance we see a humanoid figure swim towards the camera. Now, it appears to be half human, half fish, with a long scale-covered tail. The enormous enormous fins appear to propel the creature effortlessly through the water. When the clip was uploaded to the internet, it caused a speculative frenzy, as some herald the footage as strong evidence of mermaids. Now, analysts have noticed that the creature swims easily through the water without the use of its arms, and instead it uses its long fin tail to glide forwards. Now, could this diver have actually captured a real mermaid swimming in the sea? I think so.